Unsung Murder Ballads discusses topics of a graphic nature and in graphic detail and may not be suitable for children under 13. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Unsung Murder Ballads. This is episode 51. I am Janus Dead.
I'm Jameson Dead.
And tonight we are joined by none other than Shark Dead of the Dead Corps. Welcome, Shark Dead.
Thank you very much for having me. Really excited to join.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. We met, I think, a couple years ago at a Dead show in New York. Is that right?
Yeah, on Long Island. They were playing in Long Island, and that was the closest they were playing to where I was. So I had to come and see it, and really happy to meet the crew there at that time.
Yeah, that was, they were opening for Candlebox. I remember that, because then we all had dinner afterwards at a nearby diner. That was a good time.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. They came by and said hi, and, we were able to, buy them something to eat and really enjoy our time together.
Yeah, that's so much fun. I love hanging out with the band afterwards. I think that's one of the few things that they have where they're not signed, so they can do that sort of thing more. And I absolutely love that about hanging out with the band. And then you met Jameson here in Boston about a year ago.
Yep. Yeah.
And you also met Joyous Dead, but she couldn't join us tonight. So unfortunately, everyone in the universe listening, you're gonna hear three guys talk tonight. Well, Shark Dead's like two dudes.
I remember talking outside the show in Boston, waiting in line for the show, and it was really cool to catch up with you and just learn a little bit about each of you.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things about the Dead Corps that I absolutely love, is we are like one big happy family. More so, like I was in the KISS Army for many, many years, and they just, while you could talk about KISS stuff, you just didn't feel that camaraderie the way the Dead Corps has. It really is a family. Every time I'm at a show and I see another Dead Corps member, it's just, there's just that feeling that you just can't duplicate, you can't replicate anywhere. And
that's true.
Yeah, and speaking of Dead Corps, tonight's episode was recommended to us by Pink Dead, because she lived in Texas years ago. I don't know if she still does, but she did live in Texas. So thank you, Pink Dead, for this recommendation. San Antonio, Texas, in August of 1990. Actually, how old were you guys in 1990? I don't know if I'm the oldest one here.
I was 3 years old.
3? Wow, I am old. Shark?
I was about 26.
Oh, wow. So you're older than I am. Sweet. I'm no longer the old man of the group.
My math could be wrong, though, too.
No, 90. I was a sophomore in high school. So actually, August of 90, I was in between my sophomore and junior year. So you've got you got a good number of years on me. Wow. And you look good for your age, sir. Let me say that.
Thank you. Having no hair helps make you look young.
It's funny.
You
that
shave
might
bald
be,
and you look great.
Yeah, that might be why people say to me, I don't look as old as I say I am. And I'm like, I don't know. I feel old, but maybe because I went bald, I just assumed I looked older.
Yeah, I feel there's no need for Rogaine whatsoever. Just keep it bald and you look young.
Well, it's funny because about 20 years ago, my ex said she thought I should start taking Rogaine. And I was like, yeah, but if I do, I have to take it for the rest of my life. And that was the thing that steered me away from it. Not to mention the fact that my father went bald and wore a toupee, and I made fun of him for doing that. So I had to go bald gracefully. So, San Antonio, Texas, August of 1990. 11-year-old Heidi Seeman had spent the previous night at a friend's house, and her friend and her were walking her home to her house. As they're walking, a red car passes and slows down and kind of looks at the two girls, but then continues on its way. At the halfway point, Heidi's friend says goodbye and turns and begins walking back towards her house. A couple minutes later, this friend looks back, expecting to be able to wave goodbye one last time, but Heidi is gone.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, it happened that fast. This is the case of Heidi Seeman, as requested by Pink Dead, as we said. Yeah, and she basically said she wanted us to cover it because any place outside of San Antonio, Texas, doesn't really talk about this case. And once I started digging deeper, I could kind of see why, because it is an unsolved case, which is frustrating. But
Oh,
it's,
damn. Those are
yeah,
always the worst.
those are the worst, especially when they involve children. And there wasn't a lot of information on this case, but it did lead me to another case that's probably connected to it as well. So we will also be discussing the case of Erica Botello.
It's always good to get the listener suggestions, and I really love, you guys throwing cases out there for us. We love doing it, so keep them coming.
Yeah, and this is 2 weeks in a row for us where we're doing a listener suggestion.
To hear, her voice across the country where it's only localized, to San Antonio or to Texas, because some people across the country don't know about it, and it may even help somebody to learn about it.
That's true. And you forget that sometimes because that's why America's Most Wanted was so effective, because people all over the country. There was that one case where they aired a case and someone was like, I recognize that little kid, and reported it, and turned out that, yeah, that little kid had been kidnapped by one of their parents and had been living in another state, and that they were able to be reunited with their mother and all that other crazy stuff. So, I mean, it's effective. So maybe our case will help, us covering it will help get some information out there. So 11-year-old Heidi was known for her sweet, talkative nature. Her mother, Teresa, described her as follows, quote, "She loved life. She loved her friends. She was just really a pure joy," unquote. Now, as discussed, Holly disappeared on her way home from a sleepover on the morning of August 4th, 1990. The Seamans were working in their garden outside their house when they noticed that at 12:30, Heidi hadn't returned home yet, and she was supposed to be back home by noontime. Now, her father...
So this was during the daytime that she was walking home.
Yes, in the middle of the day, 12 o'clock.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. Her father, Curtis Seaman, who served in the Air Force at the time, said, quote, "She wasn't the kind to just be late without letting someone know," unquote. So they knew right away something was wrong. Now,
Sometimes that's a blessing in disguise, because sometimes, if they're not the kind of person or child to be like that, then all the what ifs kick in. But if you know right away that the behavior is off for them, then you know exactly, hey, we got to start searching, and we got to start, finding out what's going on.
Exactly. Now, the problem is most of the time, as we find out on these cases, the police don't take them seriously right away.
Right, because they're, runaways.
Yeah, they're always a runaway. Always.
Yeah, they assume it.
Yeah, it's such a bad thing. It's so frustrating when that's what you hear. So after calling over to the house of Heidi's friend, the Seamans' fears were confirmed. Their daughter had left a half an hour earlier. So they called the police, and what followed was a whirlwind of activity. Police officers arrived, neighbors sprung into action, and the Seamans drove around the northeast side neighborhoods looking for Heidi. During the preliminary investigation, police officers learned about Heidi and her friend walking home. They learned about the car. They got a description of the driver from the little girl, all that stuff. Teresa Seaman said, quote, "That's when the police really started getting involved." Basically saying they didn't take it personally enough, as a priority enough, before that. But once they had a witness who said there was this car and then she wasn't there, bam, they were acting on it.
That's sad that it took, any kind of anything to have it taken seriously.
Which is, yeah, I agree, because we're not talking about a 15-year-old. We're talking about an 11-year-old. What's an 11-year-old going to run off and do?
Right, exactly.
So according to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, 163 children went missing in the state of Texas that year.
Holy crud.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
Wow.
It is.
So despite Heidi's disappearance happening before the creation of the Amber Alert in 1996, the San Antonio community was quick to provide help for the Seamans. San Antonio, yeah, exactly. It's just one of the few times you hear it and you're like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
San Antonio-based grocery chain H-E-B offered a $5,000 reward on any information on her disappearance. So what, you guys know the team, the San Antonio Spurs, is that a basketball team?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know it. But
yeah.
So the players of the Spurs, David Robinson and Willie Anderson, offered their support and assistance as well.
No kidding.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. So Robinson said at the time, whatever they ask me to do, I'm willing to help in any way I can, which is awesome. Because we covered the one case where I think it was Jacob Wetterling, where like the national teams got involved in promoting it, like getting the word out, but their players weren't actually out there helping. So that's huge.
Right. Yeah.
So this,
Yeah, from what I recall, David Robinson was like the face of the franchise. He was their superstar too.
oh, was he? I see. I don't. I'm not a sports fan, so I don't know. I vaguely remembered his name, but I don't remember why. So
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he isn't in the Hall of Fame.
he might be. Yeah. So the San Antonio mayor, Lila Cockrell, even declared August 11th, 1990 to be the, quote, Find Heidi Day, unquote, and encouraged residents to help in the search for the young girl. Caroline Stanley, a volunteer the same age as Heidi, told a reporter why she decided to take part in the search. She said, I know my parents would be real worried if they lost me, and I was concerned, so I wanted to help out. Which is kind of awesome, but would have been terrifying if she also disappeared.
Oh my God, that would have been insane.
You know what I mean? Like that. So it's like, yeah, that's great, but yeah, someone keep an eye on this girl.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Curtis Seaman shared how appreciative he and his wife were from all the help they were receiving during the search for Heidi. He said, quote, I know at one point they said there were over 300,000 people searching on that one day.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
That's fucking crazy.
That's awesome.
So they did say it was overwhelming for them, and they could never comprehend. Before that moment, they couldn't comprehend how much the community was going to come together and how much they appreciated that. So reporter Sue Carlberg shared the common sentiment of parents of young children at that time, saying, it happened in a blink of an eye, and that's why it scared everyone so badly, because they all felt that it could be me. Which is so true. Like, think about how fast she disappeared from that street in broad daylight.
Absolutely
Right.
crazy.
So during that time, what would later be known as the Heidi Search Center was created. The center offered assistance, resources, and emotional support to families with missing children and adults. The center would eventually be closed in 2018 due to lack of funding. But it happens. They got almost 30 years out of it.
Yeah.
Center director Dottie Laster spoke about the importance of the Heidi Search Center, saying, I don't think the public understands until you don't know where your child is anymore. The absolute terror that does not get better over time. It does not lessen. It does not go away.
I was going to say that the support must have been overwhelming, but just the parents, they must have been so nervous and scared, the whole time.
It's funny because we talked about it when on our first episode we covered Molly Bish here in Massachusetts, and it's such a similar thing where they were like, her sister Heather woke up that night, the first night she was gone, and kept checking to see if maybe whoever took her brought her back. And even though that's not rational, you still have to wonder, what goes through your mind when something like that happens. Like, I've never had someone I know just disappear like that, especially a little kid. So I don't know what they're going through.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't imagine.
That feeling was a terror that the Seamans knew all too well. And less than 3 weeks into the search for Heidi, it became a terror another San Antonio family would also understand. On October 23rd, 1990, 7-year-old Erica Botello was kidnapped from her front yard.
Oh, that's just nauseating.
Yeah, literally in front of her home.
That's awful. That's unspeakable.
So like Heidi, Erica was outside at the time of her disappearance, and the Seamans shared their shock at hearing about the disappearance of the young girl. Teresa said, we couldn't believe that another child was missing, and she was even younger and smaller than Heidi. And when they came to us and said another child is missing, we were devastated for that other family, unquote. Fucking crazy.
Yeah, because they know what it's like to go through, and that they're living it.
I just want to, like, if it's the same person, how fucking brazen is that?
Oh my God, that would be absolutely insane.
Yeah, the same town,
Yeah.
another little kid. So fucking like just the balls on that person.
You know what I was thinking? I know it was 1990 and they didn't have it at the time, but I mean that's kind of like a wake up call for me to get like a doorbell cam.
Absolutely. I was amazed when I heard how many like the percentage of people who actually own things like that now. I was surprised because I it doesn't really click into my head, especially because I don't have kids. But I was surprised at the number of people who are installing cameras inside their homes. Like
Oh yeah, yeah, that's a good point.
like I personally, it's one thing to put it on the outside of your house, but I can't imagine having cameras inside my home. But so many people I know, they'll get alerts on their phones and they'll open up their phone and they're looking in their house.
Somebody breaking in or something like that, that there's, I can see the watching a baby or watching, maybe like an elderly parent or something like that.
Right.
But yeah, there's, I guess, a few good reasons to have something inside your house.
And in the end, like, it's funny. I joke around because we do true crime podcasts here, obviously. So in my mind now, I'm like, shit, we should have, I should start driving around with a dash cam. Just
Oh
want a
my
camera
God.
everywhere, you
Yep.
know, because you never know what you might catch. Having cameras anywhere is important. And you're right. If this family had had something like that back in 1990, her killer may have been identified. So search efforts for Erica Botello began immediately with the Seamans sharing all of their resources and support, including that of the Air Force, with the Botello family. At the time, Curtis Seaman said, quote, I feel if I can help a little bit, I want to. I know what the family is going through, and I want to help them get through it if I can. Which makes sense. I mean, that's a shared pain that very few people understand. News anchor Deborah Knapp, the reporter Sue Carlsberg, who both covered Heidi's case and later Erica's case, explained why they think so many people showed up to help in these searches. Both of those girls were just sweet, innocent children who were outside. Erica was in her front yard when she disappeared, and Heidi's walking home from an overnight sleepover. I just think we could all see our children in those two little girls. As local coverage of the searches for the girls continued, a family member of the Botellos pleaded with whoever had Erica to bring her back. She said, quote, we wonder what she's doing. We wonder if she slept all right. We wonder all of these things, and we want her home. And whoever has her, please bring her home, unquote. This goes back to I can't imagine the pain that you must feel that you're pleading with a potential kidnapper.
Can you imagine if the kidnapper saw that report? I wonder what goes through their head.
I guess it would depend on the type of person they were. If they're a true sociopath, they're going to love it.
Yeah, that's
Like,
a great question.
Yeah. Like,
Like, if they see that, what are they thinking? Are they just pushing it aside, or are they like loving it?
but like, I think you're going to have, because there are some people who truly feel guilty after the fact. So I guess there's the potential that that type of person could have heard that message and then turn themselves in, because that does happen occasionally. But it's really tough to say in that situation. I have a feeling that this person, and as I've already said, spoiler alert, this is unsolved. I don't think they took it in that way and decided to be a good person suddenly.
no, unfortunately not.
Yeah,
And it's the parents' worst nightmare.
absolutely. I don't have kids, but my friends' kids were like my kids, and I would have killed someone if they had touched one of those kids. So
Yeah.
San Antonio was normally a place where kids could run wild and free, but now it was on high alert, and children were being kept close to their parents. Reporter Sue Carlberg said, it wasn't just two little girls that we lost. As a community, to some degree, I think we lost a sense of innocence. And reporter Deborah Knapp said, I had small children at the time, and you just didn't want them out by themselves. We know we had stranger danger, but it's a rare thing that a stranger kidnaps a child, and here we had it, and it was two children. Fucking, again, the balls on a person to kidnap a second kid so soon after the first like that, crazy.
And
Wow.
not even at night, not even, stealth, not even,
Right.
trying to hide.
Yeah,
They're just like, nope, I want this and I'm taking it.
yeah, you just passing this little kid in front of her yard, and you're just going to scoop her up somehow and disappear with her. Which
right out in the open.
yeah, which we're about to get to what happened to one of them at least. But when you hear this, it's even more upsetting because
Oh man.
the searches soon came to an end. On August 25th, 1990, a body was found in a field and was later confirmed to be that of Heidi Seeman. The next day, on the 26th, 3 days after she had disappeared, the body of Erica Botello was found in a storm drain yards away from her home.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Literally, this guy scooped her up, went into a storm drain, and killed her.
That's just twisted as hell.
Fucked up. Like so
That's
close.
awful.
Yeah, so close to her home. It happened that fast. And nobody saw anything.
Wow.
Yeah, fucking crazy. So Joseph Jablansky, an 18-year-old airman completing military basic training at Lackland Air Force Base, was the one that found Erica's body. He said, quote, "I remember screaming. I screamed at the top of my lungs, and I tried to backtrack my way out of those tunnels as fast as I knew how. What I saw was wrong. What I saw needed to be fixed, and somebody needed to be brought to justice because of that. This is a child, even more so because this is a child. It's a hard thing to carry." Unquote.
Man, he's unfortunately scarred for the rest of his life.
Yeah. It's going to be worse than going to war.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. With a child.
Yeah, because you're at war, you're expecting yourself to get hit, your comrades to get hit, but finding a little girl, and they don't describe what state she was in. You know, like, we don't know if she was sexually assaulted. We don't know any of that because they don't go into it. But just finding a dead child, less than a 100 yards from her home in a storm drain.
Yeah. She just
Wow.
got thrown away like she was nothing.
Trash. Yeah, whoever it was threw her away like trash.
Janus,
Yes.
did they ever say like how he could have gotten in the storm drain? Is it like, up north where they kind of like are stuck into the roads?
No, so in a lot of these deserty type of cities, there are these storm drains so that there's no flooding because everything's really flat. So they're really big tunnels. You can literally just kind of walk, maybe crouch down a little bit and walk into these things. So, and they're
like you see in like Los Angeles or Vegas.
exactly
Like The Fugitive.
Exactly, Jameson.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good reference, Jameson, to help me kind of visualize that.
Yeah, that was good. So the funeral services for both girls were held on the same day. At the time, San Antonio City Councilman Jimmy Haslocker said, quote, "This is one of the most tragic days that I can even remember in this city, as we say goodbye to two precious girls. It's very, very difficult." Unquote. During the girls' separate murder investigations, several people were considered as suspects, but no one has ever been convicted in either crime. In
It's
Heidi's,
so frustrating.
yes, I have my opinion, and when we get through it, very similar to the Molly Bish case, like when we listed everyone and we kind of said who we think is the most likely. This isn't that long. Like, there's not, a dozen or more suspects here. But when you hear some of this, you're going to be like, what the absolute fuck? So, here we go.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. In Heidi's case, the Air Force Office of Special Investigations zeroed in on Major Eric Duncan as an early leader in the search efforts for Heidi and the former supervisor of Heidi's father. Okay. So basically, yeah, you have a Air Force major who very quickly came out and supported the family and went out searching with them. He becomes their number one suspect.
Well, it's always the ones that try to insert themselves in the investigation.
That's true. Oftentimes it is. So, according to the Air Force affidavit filed in the case, Duncan's car matched the description of the car Heidi's friend had seen, and he fit the description of the driver that this little girl gave. Curtis Seaman, Yeah. Like, it's crazy, right? The way I look at it is it's an attack of opportunity. He had the opportunity. He took it. He obviously didn't think it through, although, again, unsolved. He's never been convicted. So if it is him, maybe he just was like, fuck it. No one sees me do it. No one can place me here. But we're going to get into a little further, though. Curtis Seeman supported initiating charges against Duncan through the military judicial system. He said, quote, the one suspect that they did have from the Air Force, it looked like the case they had against him was fairly strong, but the San Antonio Police Department didn't believe that. He said, I can't say for sure, but it sure seemed like he was a good fit. So even he thought maybe, now this is crazy because he worked with this guy.
That's pretty damning to me, I would say.
Well, here's where you're going to get frustrated.
Oh, God.
Because the military has a way of protecting their own.
Of course they do.
So while charges were initiated against Duncan through the military justice system, the charges were dropped following an Article 32 hearing. Now, in the military justice system, an Article 32 hearing is similar to a pre-trial preliminary hearing in civilian law. So at an Article 32, a hearing officer appointed by the convening authority listens to the evidence presented by the prosecution, and then they determine whether there's enough evidence to recommend that the case go to trial. And he denied it. He didn't think there was enough evidence, so it never went to trial.
So it's just one person, not a grand jury.
Correct. In the military, it's maybe 3, but typically just one person. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, a few years ago, we're jumping ahead quite a bit, Duncan's lawyer at the time, he came forward and said, he explained that he believed that investigators were looking at Duncan, saying, if you recall, he was very active in the search for the young victim, and sometimes, whether justified or not, the investigators think that makes you a target because you're involved. He's basically saying they had nothing, and their only real, quote-unquote lead was that he got so involved, which is kind of bullshit.
Yeah, I was going to say that, but you beat me to it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, meanwhile, San Antonio Police Department's investigators had a target of their own, a man by the name of Jerry Lee Naber, which is ironic. Naber, like nab, her. Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Or it was pronounced neighbor. It's really hard to say, but it looks like Naber. But he was actually cleared because the DNA test came back as negative. So they did have DNA samples, so maybe there was a sexual assault there, but that came back as negative, and he was cleared. Now, in Erica's case, several arrests were made. I say several, but really 3. 31-year-old Kenneth Earl Pope, 32-year-old Sherman Bedford, and 17-year-old Roderick Springs. But according to the San Antonio Police Department, 2 of the 3 suspects charged that were arrested in Erica's murder were no-billed by a grand jury. Now, no-billed,
Really?
Yeah, no-billed means that the grand jury decided that there wasn't sufficient evidence, the same as the Article 32 situation. As frustrating as that is, this is why they do that. Prosecutors do not want a case to go to trial and have the guilty person found to be innocent. Because if there's more evidence that can show they were guilty, that person cannot be put on trial a second time for the same crime.
Right. It's called double jeopardy, I believe.
Correct. Double jeopardy. So that's why, as frustrating as it is, because I do think that Major was probably the one who killed Heidi, and maybe one of these men killed Erica, but without enough evidence, they can't risk, the double jeopardy thing if later something comes up. So it sucks, but I kind of get it. This is one of those.
You don't want to bring someone to trial and have them get free, and then they can't, bring any charges against them down the road.
Correct, because once they're considered innocent, that's it. You'd have to find another crime they were guilty of. Maybe if you put them on trial for murder for the first one, they're found not guilty, and then later you could prove it was them. Maybe you could get them for like sexual assault, but there's a statute of limitation on that. And at this point, it's been 34 years. So you wouldn't be able to
Right.
charge them for anything except murder.
But it's also frustrating too because if you did hit the double jeopardy instance, whatever other crime you were going to charge them for, it's definitely going to be less than what the original charge they were going for would be.
Absolutely. Yes. So that's why, again, they didn't want to move forward. They said, you don't have enough evidence, come back when you do. Which sucks, but it makes sense.
I wonder if the major may have, committed the second murder to throw them off the trail, if they thought, hey, he had a tie into Heidi's death, then if the second murder happened and that was not someone affiliated with the major, then he could do that to throw him off the trail that really it was somebody else.
It could be. I mean, it's tough to say at this point, but that would be an interesting strategy. A reckless strategy,
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Right.
I mean, as we can tell, everything's pretty reckless,
Yeah, that's true
with
too.
these kidnappings.
Yeah, that's very, very true. Now, that case against the third suspect was dismissed after he confessed because it was ruled as inadmissible because he was mentally deficient.
I was waiting for our go-to plea there.
No, he supposedly confessed, but again, we know that sometimes people falsely confess. But he was determined to be mentally deficient, therefore, his confession was inadmissible. Yeah.
All right.
Wow.
Crazy. So, and as we've stated, there's no statute of limitations on capital murder. So, if something comes up, they could go after this person again. But considering it's been 34 years, I'm not holding my breath on that. So, someone did try to contact a department spokesperson to interview them, and they denied the request for interviews, stating the families did not wish to bring any more light to this case, and they were asked not to discuss it with the media. So at this point, police aren't saying shit, and they're claiming, and I don't know how true it is, but they're claiming that they're doing this, keeping with the family's wishes. So that might be why we don't hear as much of it right now.
I don't know. I think it's maybe because they don't want to go back into it. They don't want to open it back up. If I were the family, I would want any information or answers or leads or anything.
Agreed. And that's why we go back to the Molly Bish case. That's why Heather Bish is so actively out there. She wants everyone to know her name, and she's all over the police, and the police are tired of having to. She said that they told her they were going to stop discussing DNA evidence with her because that's her big push is, this DNA, what do they call it, familial DNA? Like, that's her big push. So clearly, and I agree with you, I think the police are full of shit on that one, and they're using it as a nice smokescreen. Heidi's case is now in the hands of the Texas Rangers. A person named Ranger Gooding, who became the lead investigator in Heidi's case in 2007, said that he is, quote, fighting to make this case one that will see results, unquote. But that was back in 2007. So how much work are you doing there, Gooding?
Right. Come on now.
Yeah. So
That's almost 20 years.
It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Like, I understand that these are hard to solve, but if you can't solve them, just say so. Don't keep blowing smoke up our asses,
We got to get Chuck Norris involved.
Oh, God. If Chuck Norris ever goes out and solves a fucking cold case, I might just hang up my hat.
Well, did you catch the reference between Ranger?
Oh, because he played a Texas Ranger, didn't he? Walker,
Yeah.
Texas. See,
Yeah.
I didn't get
Walker.
that right away. I went right over my head, man. I thought you were just making a Chuck Norris joke.
Oh no. No.
That's funny.
Yeah, Chuck Norris can do anything, but he was Walker, Texas Ranger.
That's true. I completely forget that. Yeah. Wow. I'm gonna go back to bed.
And I'm the youngest here.
Yes. So the Seamans shared their thoughts on the lack of justice for both Heidi and Erica, saying, quote, it's heartbreaking, not only because they weren't brought to justice for the girls, but also we don't know what they're doing if they're doing it again right now. That's part of it. We wanted them in jail for Heidi's death and for Erica's death, but also so that they couldn't take the life of another child. Unquote. So, 100% agree with him. We have no idea if this person or people went out and hurt more children. So
Yeah, that's
Right.
just a scary thought.
So while their daughter's killer has never been brought to justice, Teresa Seeman has said that she hasn't given up hope. She says it's hard to have hope after over 30 years, but they have solved other cases after much longer, so they haven't completely given up.
See, that's good.
Now, Heidi's older sister died unexpectedly in 2019,
Ooh.
but the Seamans choose to celebrate the lives of their daughters and all the good that came from the Heidi Search Center prior to its closing. She said, quote, "We have statistics that we kept for over 27 years. So out of around 4,000 cases, 98% were located. 94% were located alive."
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the Seaman says their daughter's biggest legacy is all the love and caring that carried on through her. She said, quote, "I think that she would be very proud of all the work the Heidi Search Center did, and I think she would be happy with that. And I think that would make her smile. And you know, knowing that she helped all those people as much as she loves to take care of people and things, she saw the good, and I think that helped us all see the good." I mean, it's funny because, Heidi's 11, so obviously she's going to see the good in the world,
Right. Good for her.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Robert Lowry, the former vice president of the Missing Children Division and the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children, said this at one point, quote, "What happened to Heidi and Erica was extremely rare 30 years ago, but it is even more rare today, and that is due to the capabilities of law enforcement," unquote. Now, personally, for me, this statement stood out, which is why we're talking about it. San Antonio, Texas is not exactly safe, and missing persons are not a, quote, rare thing. This shit happens all the time.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Texas as a whole leads the way in missing persons.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I did some research, and we're going to talk about some numbers here. Depending upon the source of the report and or the year the report was created, Texas moves up and down a little bit, but they're usually in the top 5 states for missing people. Top 5.
Wow.
Yeah. They're also usually the number 1 spot for Amber Alerts, which is probably for the best, considering that in 2020, Texas had 3,588 missing children.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Now, as far as the city of San Antonio goes, your chances of being a victim of kidnapping is fucking crazy. So you have the northern part of the city, which is the nicer part.
Okay.
So your chances of being abducted there are 1 in 22,130. So very low.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense.
22,000. Now, your chances of being abducted in the southern parts of the city is 1 in 2,836.
Wow. That's drastically
A
different.
huge swing. So San Antonio has some fucking work to do. So in May of 2023, U.S. Marshals announced that they had recovered 225 endangered missing children during a coordinated 10-week effort with multiple law enforcement agencies. More than 24 of those missing children were from San Antonio and the surrounding areas.
Okay. A little bit
crazy.
of progress.
Yeah, but still fucking crazy.
Oh, yeah. Most definitely.
But that same month that they rescued all those children, 34 children went missing from Texas.
Oh, 1 step forward, 9 steps back.
Last year in 2023, the San Antonio Police Department had approximately 1,400 entered missing person cases and cleared approximately 1,300 of them. It still leaves 100 missing people that they didn't find, locate, or clear.
Wow.
Fucking nuts, man.
Wow, that's like 4 whole classrooms right there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this number includes adults.
Okay.
Yeah. So, just as with missing persons, Texas is always at the top of the list for human and child trafficking stats. Roughly about 300,000 children are trafficked every year across the world. The U.S. accounts for only about 5% of those children that are trafficked. Now,
That's it.
that's it. Everyone else. So I'm researching another case, and we're going to cover that one soon-ish. But I just learned that for all the people being trafficked in Europe, about 50% of those people come from Romania.
Wow.
Yeah, fucking nuts. And one reason Texas always seems to be at the top of this list is because of their proximity to the Mexican border. And San Antonio is southern-ish to the Texas, so they're kind of close to the border. And, they're just sort of always there with this problem. As of December of 2023, the state of Texas had over 300 active missing children. But keep in mind, some of those had been missing for years.
Okay.
But 300 active missing children is still a frightening number.
Yeah, it is.
I don't want to paint San Antonio in a bad light. The city is no more dangerous than most other big U.S. cities, statistically speaking. I find it incredibly sad that neither Heidi nor Erica ever found justice, and I think the longer time passes, the less and less likely we're going to find that justice. I have to assume that if there was any DNA that had been recovered at the sites, that the police would be looking into it and testing it and, hopefully running it through these familial DNA processes that caught the Golden State Killer. But unfortunately, we seem to be at a standstill. They're not talking to any news reporters or anyone else that's looking into it, claiming the families want privacy.
Well, hopefully it's more to the positive that they have something they're working on and they just don't want to share it with anybody to tip off the person they're looking at.
That would be the best case scenario, but I'm a bit more skeptical. Again, I'm going to refer back to the Molly Bish case. I truly think that they probably used up their samples and they don't have any more, but they don't want to talk about it. As I truly think that's what happened in the Molly Bish case, which is why they will not talk to Heather Bish anymore about, DNA samples. But what do I know? Yeah. There is a Heidi Project page on Facebook that carries on the existing case of the Heidi Search Center. Anyone with information can reach out to the San Antonio Police Department by calling their homicide unit at 210-207-7635 or by calling Crime Stoppers at 210-244-STOP, which is 7867. Or you can send an email to homicide@sanantonio.gov. Information for the Texas Department of Public Safety's Texas Rangers can also be sent through the Texas Crime Stoppers. All tips are anonymous, and tipsters can receive a cash reward for up to $3,000 for information that leads to the arrest of persons or persons responsible for a cold case. But the tipsters must call Crime Stoppers at 1-800-252-TIPS to be eligible for that cash reward. And that, my friends, is the case of Heidi Seeman and Erica Botello. It's so sad.
That was a roller coaster. Holy crud.
It sucks that it's unsolved. It's so frustrating.
And I think that's what made it a big roller coaster is, there was some hope there that things were going to get solved and it just slipped away.
I don't know if these people, the suspects, are still alive, but I truly hope that there is a DNA sample. They can test it, and hopefully it leads back to them so we can have them arrested and they can finally face judgment. Because I think this person's been out there for far too long.
Oh, by far.
Now, granted, this person, for all we know, could have been another killer that's already in prison for something else, but the problem is we don't know, and that's frustrating. That's the case. Final thoughts?
I think we pretty much wrapped it up. You said pretty much everything I was going to say.
What about you, Shark Dad? What do you think?
I mean, my final thought was, what a horror for those families to go through. But it was a little kind of positive for me that I heard about, the Heidi Project and the good that they did in the community, to carry on, the children's names and just to kind of create a legacy for them.
Yeah, I love when they do something like that. Like there was one case we covered that happened in Oregon where after everything was done, the families just moved away. They just disappeared from everything. And I understand that sometimes that's how you need to grieve, But at the same time, I like it when someone takes it and they turn it into something positive. So yeah, I think the Heidi's family did the right thing, you know. So
Yeah, that's something I've always thought of. If something like that happened, would I be an advocate or would I just kind of slink away and do nothing? I don't know how I would handle something like that.
hopefully you'll never have to find out, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes. I have to be honest though, I know myself well enough to know that I work hard to control my anger in some situations. I don't know if someone killed a family member or a friend that I cared that much about. I don't know that I wouldn't try to take justice into my own hands. So that's my concern, and why I'm glad it's never happened to me, because I might be that guy who killed his family member's killer. All right, so that wraps up one more for us here at Unsung Murder Ballads. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Thank you for coming in and joining us, Shark Dead. We appreciate you.
Yes, great to have you. It was great to get the listener suggestions. Keep them coming, guys.
Absolutely. The more you give us, the more we can do. Now, granted, I have like a list 150 long, but you send in a recommendation, I will bump it to the top. I think we have a turnaround of about 6 to 8 weeks, so send them to us. We'll get them done.
There we go.
Yeah, so thank you for joining us. I am Janus Dead.
I'm Jameson Dead.
And I'm Shark Dead.
All right, and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.